that you can catch on KBC Channel 1. And in studio this morning is Bishop David Munyiri Tagana of the Glory Outreach Assembly. There is also a lot to talk about in terms of national cohesion. We have seen over the last couple of days so much happening, politicians being arraigned in court over alleged hate speech. So we are going to be discussing this, of course. We know that the law is the law. Chapter 4 provides for so many things. One of them is freedom of expression, and that particular freedom is supposed to be exercised in some kind of a way. But first things first, what do you make of what we have seen so far? Alleged hate speech from politicians being arrested and arraigned in court, and of course Kenyans in their usual fashion reacting to all that.
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. That's a very important discussion that we are having today, because honestly speaking, our nation is at a situation whereby we would want to see some change. We would want to see some change in the sense that there is too much talking, and the talking is not really bad. As you have said, we all have freedom to express ourselves, but the language is probably one of those things that we don't really like, particularly those of us who come from the church side and who represent the children and the common mwananchi who watches and listens to our readers. I think we are not very comfortable with the language, particularly when people speak so negative about each other. The politicking, it is their job, politicians to politic, just like it is my job to preach the gospel. However, I tend to think that it has come too early, particularly the campaign angle side of it. And worse still, the context, the timing just within the context of the COVID-19 and all the struggles that we have gone through and still going through. And I think something needs to be done about that.
And the church has always come out strongly against such remarks by politicians or any Kenyan who is deemed to have incited a particular group. Is the church or the religious groups coming strongly against what we have seen over the last couple of days? Because the reactions has mostly been from their fellow politicians.
Yes, we have come very strongly. We have come very strongly. I guess the reason why we probably may not have been heard is, number one is the churches were shut down because of the COVID, and we are going through the phases of reopening. So the phases of reopening have a lot of limitations in terms of the amount of time that we have, an hour and a half, and also the membership. So really, when it comes to speaking, we may not necessarily have enough time to express ourselves as we should within the limited time with these protocols of reopening the churches. However, whenever there is an opportunity, we have always done that, and that's why I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to speak. I happen to be the General Secretary of the Federation of Indigenous and Evangelical Christian Churches of Kenya. So when I speak, I don't just speak about on my behalf. I speak on behalf of all the indigenous churches that as the General Secretary, and also I am the founder of Glory Outreach Assembly in Kenya. So really, we speak, but there are opportunities to speak, or rather our voice may not be heard as much as it should. So this is a good opportunity for us to say that we really condemn with the strongest terms, particularly the language that is being used by the politicians against each other. And you know, most of the children are at home because the schools have been shut down. Most of the people work from home. So we have a lot of time. Kenyans have a lot of time to watch the news. And even right now, many Kenyans are watching us because they have the time, they're at home, even as the situation reopens. So we get to hear almost every word that is said. And as a church, we feel that the politicians need to check their language and speak with a bit of decorum, particularly when it comes to speak about each other. Some decorum is needed because of the audience that is watching. And you know, people take politicians seriously. Our country is so much influenced by politics. So when the children and the younger people and other people hear about the language that they use, they are bound to take it very, very serious and to influence them. So we are not for it. We condemn it strongly, and we advise politicians to check their words and be a bit of decorum.
And 2022 is just 2 years away. Do you believe perhaps there is an attempt or a scheme by of the political class to heighten the political temperatures like we have seen over the last couple of years when it is an electioneering period?
I would not even use the word just 2 years away. I would say it is 2022 is very far. Based on the challenges and the issues that are facing our country, the economy is not good. It's actually just not working. The COVID-19, the disease, the schools, the institutions being shut down. We have too much issues of national importance that we could prioritize and give focus rather than talk about 2022. Today, the common mwananchi is, number one, is struggling with what to eat. They're struggling with food to put on the table. The common mwananchi has come from a time when many lost their jobs because of the COVID-19. Others, even today, they still unable to pay their house rent. The common mwananchi is thinking about the child who is in the house, not knowing when the school is going to be opened, and also taking care of all the needs that comes with that. When the discussions have begun about the school reopening, but the common mwananchi is as much as he or she appreciates the schools are reopening, they are more concerned with the economic implications of reopening, coming from a context where they have not been working, they've been struggling with food, they have been taking care of themselves from disease. In view of all that, 2022 is just too far away to start looking at issues of 2022, because we have more pressing issues today which are of great national importance. So
then how best can our leaders or politicians articulate issues without necessarily having to whip emotions?
I think that's where now we need, that's where I talked about the decorum, because as one of the things that hypes up the emotions is the language. When you speak in a language that is so negative or derogatory to another party, even if you subscribe to different political ideologies, you are bound to hype the tensions, particularly to all those people who follow them up and who subscribe to their ideologies. So one of the things that the politicians need to do is to tame their people, because everyone has an influence. And when they say something, the people who follow them, and that's what we have seen. When somebody says something, a huge group of people who either support them or subscribe to the ideology follows, and sometimes they make it even worse than what the person said. So, and of course, the picture is very clear in this country as to who has the influence and who does not, because it is clear the politicians who have the influence. It is very clear who they are. And the people following them, things have begun to shape up. So definitely, they have the ability to influence all those behind them so that they don't hype up or they don't cause tensions by what they speak.
And are they speaking for themselves, or they're speaking on behalf of the people that they represent?
In my view, not many politicians speak on behalf of the people they represent. Most of the politicians speak on their behalf, but this is where our role as a church has been not very effective, as I may say, because it's our role to do civic education to the common mwananchi, and we do our best given the opportunity, though we don't get as much opportunity as we should. But in our civic education, we help the common mwananchi, the wanjiko, to know that not exactly everything that the politician is saying is for their best interest, because the politician is so much focused on today and what they will get out of it, and tomorrow, and their goal is to mobilize and influence everybody, rally everybody behind them, using whatever method. That is why the language sometimes is not very present because they want to use the end justifies the means to a politician. It doesn't matter who is listening, it doesn't matter the damage, it doesn't matter the disunity that could be caused nationally by the words that they speak, because they care very much about themselves. But I think in this country it's the high time that we need leaders really who will lead with the mwananchi in their mind and their heart. People who will be visionary leaders, not just political interest, self-interest, but visionary leaders. People who are looking at the future of this country. People who are looking at the person who actually voted for them to go out and represent them. We need that, and we lack that. We have too many politicians compared to visionary leaders who care about the future for this country, about the future of the other person. That is why, and that's why we are having a problem. But again, as I said, we have to do a lot of civic education to the common mwananchi to realize that at the end of it all, it is that politician who is benefiting, it is the mwananchi who is suffering, and it is the common mwananchi who will be required to vote in that person and who really doesn't eventually help them.
And one of the things that have really been proved to be helping Kenyans or any other populace elsewhere is job opportunities, because when you are busy, you don't have time to listen to all these arguments which are being put forward by politicians and other leaders. In our situation, what do we need to do? I know that COVID-19 is supposed to unite us, but what are other things that we can do as a country to keep our minds off of what we are witnessing currently? This whole discussion, this whole dialogue that is being brought up by our leaders.
Yes, there is so much that we can do because, as we said earlier, these people are doing what they actually are voted to do as politicians. They talk and do the other things. But the common mwananchi need to be thinking more about what is it that I can do myself today that can help make my family and my life better. I should be thinking as a common mwananchi, as Bishop David Munyiri, what is it I can do today other than sitting there listening to people and then taking up their message and beginning to hate a common Kenyan or just to argue over that. I should be thinking of what could I do within the difficult time that we are living in so that my life will even be better. For example, if I'm a businessman and I cannot do any business because of the way the situation is, I could be preparing myself and just renovating my premises or keeping my client through whichever way, so that when the economy begins to build up, at least I'll have the people. The children who are at home with their parents, they need to be engaging themselves with how they can learn and keep learning, so that when the schools reopen, they will again not be so illiterate and so much disconnected with the educational stuff. But if they are all the time going to spend the time talking about what this politician said and the other politician said, I think it doesn't make any the situation better. For us as a church, of course, it's our huge responsibility to pray for the country. It's our huge responsibility to pray for the nation and all those leaders. And that's what we spend our time on. Even when we cannot congregate as much and have as much time as we could, we spend a lot of our time praying, and when we have the opportunity to just speak and sensitize the people that, there is hope beyond the COVID, and we should not be distracted by all the political rhetoric. Neither should we agree to be divided along political lines and political ideologies, particularly for 2022. It is so ironic that we can start hating each other because of 2022 when we have pressing problems for today that we need to commonly come together and address and ask ourselves, what is the best environment for our children to be reopening the school at this point? Have we met those conditions? What could be my role as a common person in ensuring that there will be safety in the children reopening the schools? What is it that we can do today as common people to ensure that we are supporting each other through this struggle? Because together we can minimize the struggles and the challenges of living. I remember when COVID became a big problem, as a church reader, where I'm stationed at Kahawa Wendani, people started coming to ask me, what are we going to eat? I've lost my job. I used to clean people's clothes. They cannot allow me in. I have no food. I am kicked out of the house. My medical bills. Those things, I could not separate myself from them as a church reader. I cannot just separate and focus on the spiritual part of it, because this is the person. So what I did is that I created Hope for Nations, to just an initiative to ensure that I address the common prevailing problems, where I help the people to get food, to pay their rent, to get out of hospital. In other words, what I'm saying is that there are issues that are facing us today that cannot wait for tomorrow. They cannot wait for 2022. But when we come together and we support each other, the burden becomes lighter. We come together and share with each other. What are you doing? How are you dealing with it? How I'm dealing with it. It is going to be easier for us, and I think that is where the common Mwananchi should be spending much of their time, in engagement of, Edward, how are you dealing with this? How are you dealing with this challenge? This is the way I'm dealing with it. And that, helping each other, that is what we need to do. In terms of our perspectives and the way we look at things, the way we do things, we could build each other a lot as Kenyans and share whatever we have in form of ideas, in terms of material things.
Do you think that the president is getting the support that he needs when it comes to nation building and ensuring that we have a cohesive country?
I don't think he's getting the support that he needs. And sometimes I look at him and I pity him and I sympathize with him, because I look at him and see a person who really sometimes almost left alone, or sometimes I look at him and see a disconnect between the people who elected him and him, and probably in my view, when I look at this disconnect, sometimes I see like he might be getting different information from what it is on the ground. Because really, if he is getting the real information and the correct information, and if he truly understands the suffering of the common man, the food, the clothes, the medical, the challenges, the fears that the Kenyans have, I think probably things would have been different. So I really don't think he gets the support that he needs, because, and why I say this, he has come out clearly many times and said, these are my 4 agendas. And clearly spelled out, and they're great, they're excellent. And if we achieved all those 4 agendas, I'm telling you, everyone would want to come and live here. But then the guys who are around him, or the people surrounding him, even if either they don't understand those agendas, or they want to use them as paths to their selfish interests. And that's why, in my view, that's why there is all this political bickering, that's why there's all this conflict, because if we want to support our boss, and we have you have your interest and I have my interest, I guess most likely what seems to happen is that the people have focused more onto their personal interests. So I really don't think he gets that.
And there is always that bit about campaigning for the next available seat. It looks as if the focus has shifted from the president's development agenda to his succession. Yesterday, Deputy President did ask politicians not to peddle lies and false information that the president is going to seek another term in office. What do we need to do as a country? If we exclude our leaders, what do we need to do as Kenyans to ensure that whatever we do, however time we got, we ensure that it is in line with the Constitution and it is in line with the Vision 2030, which some may argue that perhaps the time frame is not going to be enough to achieve?
I think, again, it goes back to how much politics has influenced our nation. Because some people will sit there and just want to listen to what these leaders say. And we cannot fail to listen to them, because that's why we elected them to go represent us. But again, we should listen to them with an ear whereby we are able to distinguish between what is helpful to the Kenyan people and what is really not helpful. For example, right now at this moment, the focus on 2022 is in my view, is completely irrelevant to the common Kenyan. It is irrelevant. It is not the right time to be talking about this. And when I listen to all this talk of 2022, it makes me feel very disappointed being a Kenyan and being a leader, because I will listen to that, and when I walk out of my house, right out there, I'm going to meet a hungry Kenyan. I'm going to meet a person who is saying, Bishop, help me, I've been kicked out of the house. I'm going to meet the real, just walking out of the house after I have sat and watched and listened to the politician speaking about 22 and everything that they have to say, just out there, not very far. You don't need to drive to find a Kenyan who is struggling with today's issue. As basic as food, as basic as house rent, as basic as medical, and of course the fears that every Kenyan have with the COVID. Praise God, the story is changing, that the curve is flattening, but the fears